buka on Ikorodu Road did not have a proper name. The sign above the entrance read, Mama Priscilla Kitchen, but nobody really called it that. It was simply that place near the filling station. You knew it by smell before sight, the mix of Nigerian local dishes floating into the street from mid-morning. Soup, swallow, rice, beans, assorted meats, and varieties of food that pulled in the kind of Lagos hunger that does not negotiate. By noon, the queue was already forming. Inside, the setup was simple but intentional. A long counter separated customers from rows of food warmers filled with Nigerian local dishes. Everything was portioned, priced, and constantly moving. The system worked like this. Each server stepped forward, took one customer at a time through the full counter, served whatever they selected, confirmed choices, and passed the order to the cashier. Then they returned for the next person. On paper, it was efficient. In reality, by early afternoon, it was controlled pressure. The queue was never just a queue. It was bankers on lunch break checking their watches, engineers from nearby companies trying to eat quickly before returning to work, a lecturer who always ordered the same food every Thursday, young professionals discovering the place through recommendations, drivers waiting on behalf of their bosses with strict instructions about what to buy. Everyone was hungry. Everyone was in a hurry. And the difference between smooth service and total breakdown was always thin. One slow server could disrupt everything. A hesitant customer could hold the line. A food warmer running low at the wrong moment could create delays that spread across the entire system. Even the cashier and servers had to stay perfectly synchronized or everything backed up. None of these problems had official names, but someone had to manage them anyway. Mary did. She was 27, a communications graduate who had spent a year after school searching for office jobs that never came. The role at Mama Priscilla Kitchen was supposed to be temporary. 3 years later, she was still there. Not because she planned to stay, but because everything worked when she was there. Her job description, if you asked anyone, was simple. She oversaw. But that word was too small for what she actually did. She saw everything. When food in a warmer was running low, she had already alerted the kitchen before anyone noticed. When queues started forming unevenly, she quietly separated them. When a server began to slow down, she stepped in, not to correct, but to stabilize. When a customer's complaint was about to form, she was already there before it became a problem. She never raised her voice. She never stayed in one place long enough to be ignored. She moved like a quiet correction to chaos. The staff trusted her, even if they could not explain why. The kitchen adjusted to her timing. The cashier watched for her movement like a signal that something important was about to happen. Mama Priscilla paid her 60,000 naira a month and considered it fair. But the system was holding together because of her. And someone was watching. Mr. Patrick was 53, a businessman running a distribution company in Maryland. He came to the buka often, sometimes for convenience, sometimes just to step away from work. From his corner table, he observed everything. At first, he was not watching her specifically. He was simply noticing something unusual. The system worked too well for its pressure. The queue moved. Customers left satisfied. Staff were calm in a way that did not match the intensity of lunch hour service. Over time, a pattern formed. Every smooth moment in that room traced back to one person. A woman who always seemed to appear exactly where she was needed before she was needed. One afternoon, he stayed longer than usual. A disagreement had formed at the cashier's desk. A customer insisted that the portion of meat he received was smaller than what others got. The server had already moved on. The cashier was trying to manage the situation. Other customers were beginning to watch. Before it escalated, Mary arrived. She listened completely. No interruption, no rush. She checked the receipt. She said a few quiet words. The man paused. Then, almost suddenly, the tension disappeared. He returned to his seat. No scene, no disruption. Mr. Patrick finished his call, stood up, and walked toward the exit. Mary was near the door, scanning the room the way she always did when service was slowing down. He spoke. "Excuse me." She turned carefully, like someone used to unexpected questions in Lagos. How long have you worked here?
3 years, sir.
And before this?
I worked in a small supermarket. Before that, I did an internship in a facilities company.
He nodded slowly. Have you ever thought about applying what you do here to larger organizations? She looked at him with the calm patience of someone who has heard similar sentences before, sentences that usually lead nowhere.
What I do here is just to make sure the place runs, sir.
That is exactly what I mean, he said. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a card, and placed it on the counter. Call me when you're ready. Then he left. That night, Mary mentioned it to her sister casually. Her sister did not hesitate.
Call the man, she said. Why are you waiting?
But Mary waited, not because she was unsure, but because some decisions feel heavier when you know they can change your entire direction. 2 weeks passed. Then one morning, she called. And everything shifted. Mr. Patrick owned a warehouse operation in Maryland. On paper, everything looked fine. Goods moved in and out. Stock was recorded. Staff were present. Revenue was steady, but underneath something was off. Not broken, just slow. Delays that no one could fully explain. Handovers between workers that created small pauses. Gaps in communication that seemed insignificant individually, but together created friction across the entire system. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, but enough to quietly affect clients and delay trust. He asked Mary to observe. 2 weeks. No instructions, no interference, just watch. She agreed. Mary walked the warehouse floor quietly for the first few days. She didn't rush to conclusions. She didn't try to fix anything immediately. She just watched how work moved, not just the work itself, but the movement between people. By the 4th day, she saw it clearly. The problem was not the workers. It was the gaps between them. Every handover had silence where there should have been clarity. Every task waited for confirmation that came too late. Every process depended on assumptions instead of structure. Individually, nothing was wrong, but together, the system was leaking time. By the end of 2 weeks, Mary wrote everything down on a single page. 8 observations, 7 adjustments. No new equipment, no extra staff, no extra cost, just timing, structure, and communication changes. Mr. Patrick read it twice. Then he implemented most of it immediately. Within weeks, the results were visible. Delays reduced by more than half. Clients who had started complaining became calm again. One even called to say deliveries were now smoother than before. Internally, staff tension reduced without anyone explicitly addressing it. Things simply started working better. Then Mr. Patrick called her into his office. On the table was an envelope. Inside was 250,000 naira. Mary did not touch it at first.
This is too much,
she said quietly. Mr. Patrick shook his head. It is not, he replied. I have paid consultants from big firms more than this to tell me less useful things, he said. What you gave me is worth more than what is inside that envelope. She still didn't move. He continued. The problem is not your work. The problem is that the places you have worked did not have language for what you do. That sentence stayed in the air. Mary looked down at the envelope again, then back at him.
Operations consultant,
she said slowly. It was not a question. It was recognition forming for the first time. Yes, he said. That is what it is. And that was the moment everything changed. Not the money, not the office, not even the opportunity that followed, but the name. Because for years, Mary had been doing the same thing in every place she worked. In the buka, in the supermarket, in the warehouse. She watched systems. She noticed gaps. She closed friction before it became failure. But without a name for it, it was invisible. And what is invisible cannot be priced properly. Months passed, then years. Mary began working with logistics companies in Lagos. Retail chains, hospital systems, anywhere things needed to flow better. And everywhere she went, the pattern was the same. The real problems were never the obvious ones. They were the gaps between roles, the silence between processes, the friction between steps that nobody thought to connect. And she fixed them, quietly, precisely, without noise. Because she had always been doing it. She just finally had a name for it, and that name changed everything. The lesson: most people are not underperforming. They are misread. They are working in rooms too small to reflect what they actually do, paid for what can be seen, not for what actually holds everything together. The skill that will change your life is often not something new. It is something you have already been doing for years, so naturally, so consistently, that you stopped noticing it as valuable. Clarity is not discovery. It is naming. Think about the things you do in every environment you enter. The thing people rely on without explaining why. The thing that keeps systems from breaking. That has no title. But without it, everything slows down. Write it down. Name it. Not by where you do it, but by what it actually is. That is where your next level begins. Not tomorrow. Now. And if you know someone still doing important work without a name for it, share this with them. It might be the clearest thing they hear today. Please like and subscribe to our channel, The Clarity Lab. The next story is coming.